Hey there, Centrons. Behringer has given us an update on the Polykobol that they are developing. Now, the Polykobol, as some of you may recall, is a synthesizer that was designed by the French company RSF in the early 1980s. Now, there was less than 40 of these ever made, and only 20 of those units are still in existence. Now, I guess that's a pretty good ratio. That's 50% of them, and it's been about 40 years, so that's pretty good. This synthesizer is regarded as one of the best sounding synthesizers that was ever made, depending on who you ask. I don't know. I have barely had a chance to catch any of these sound samples that are available on the internet, but from what I've heard, it sounds like a very thick and powerful synthesizer. But here's what Behringer has to say. Our French lead engineer spent huge amounts of time to analyze the analog circuitry of the Polykobol, and now recreated the voice, the breadboard. Now, this is similar to what they were saying about the CS80 synth clone that they're working on, the DS80, by transforming it into a modern design while retaining the authentic behavior of the original circuitry. The voice breadboard, which for now only consists of two voices, is completed, so that part is done. Together with all front panel control boards, this is the final step before moving to the actual electronic design of the synthesizer. Because this is equally one of the most complex synthesizers ever designed, we're still a long way from delivering a final product. But we hope you'll find this information interesting. And then Behringer goes on to say, wish us much luck with this ambitious project. Like with the DS80, there's also a substantial risk that we won't succeed. Hence, we like to be upfront with you. Now, it's interesting that this is twice in a row in 2 days that Behringer has come out and they've admitted that there is a chance that there may not be any success. Now, I think that they're going to succeed to a point. Now, whether they actually nail it 100% is another question, but whatever they come out with, they are going to release it to the public. I doubt very seriously that Behringer is going to spend all of this time and money and resources in developing a synthesizer and then scrap it at the end just by, because they don't think it's 100%. So I think they're going to succeed. I just really believe it's going to be quite a while before we actually see any of these big mega polysynths that Behringer is promising us in the future. Now, with that being said, they're not giving us any timestamps like they did on the Poly 800. But here's the interesting thing, and this is what I mentioned yesterday. Behringer goes on to say, if you want to collaborate with our synth developers and make your voice be heard, please join us. Please join our Synthesizer and Drum Behringer Music Tribe Facebook group. Now, see, this is the cool part, is because they're not just throwing these things out there with no input from the community. Behringer is listening to many of the voices that are out there asking for changes and additions and subtractions to their synthesizers. So given the time frame that we're looking at, we still have time with this synthesizer along with the DS80 to voice our opinions about what we do and do not want. So I think this is the upside of what Behringer is doing when they release information early on. I think at this point, it's safe to assume that Behringer is working behind the scenes on many different synthesizers, and that they are actually in full throttle for designing all sorts of synths that are clones. And I use the word clone very loosely here. I don't think anybody can ever bring back the actual synth from 40 years ago of any make or model. I think that too much has changed, but I've said this many times in my videos. But these are going to be close enough that we can have a taste of what these vintage synthesizers played and felt like at the time. Of course, there's nothing that beats the real deal. We all know this. That's absolutely obvious that there's nothing like the real deal. But I will say this, I've owned quite a few vintage synthesizers, and yes, they do sound very nice, and they sound very quirky in most situations that I've used them in, and I like the quirky sounds of the old synths. But there's something to be said about old synthesizers that are kind of like falling apart and they need maintenance and things aren't really as nice and shiny and new as they used to be. And then there's the lack of MIDI on many of these older synthesizers that are floating around out there, or things that when you buy these old vintage synths that the sellers don't disclose simply because they don't know or they don't want to disclose some of the faults that these machines have. And it is nice to be able to get something that is a bit newer, like as in brand new, and has some modern features like MIDI already installed in them. With that being said, we all know that Behringer has had their problems with their early releases of their synthesizers. And I still stand by at this point in time by what I said several months ago, and that is Behringer's best synthesizer as of this video right here now, in my opinion, is the DeepMind 12/6. I think that is the best synth that they have made to this date, and I'm hoping that they're going to go up a notch from there. But that's my opinion. What is yours? Leave a comment below. Let's talk about this. I am Pure Ambient Drone. Hit that subscribe button, tap that bell, and above all, keep calm and synth on.